My name is Mallory. I'm just going to tell you a little bit kind of about myself. I'm working at the shop for a little over a year, but I've been in the hospitality industry for like 7+ years, pretty much my entire adult life, and kind of have been, focusing on wine for a little, past couple of years or so. I had a short stint working in a restaurant in Brooklyn for about a year. So that's kind of a little bit of my background. Rachel, you want to do a little introduction?
Yeah, sure. So,
restaurant in Brooklyn.
I worked at Faro in Bushwick. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, so I'm Rachel. I've worked here intermittently for about 3 years. I've been in service industry restaurants for like 10 years or so. Definitely taken a love for wine. So I'm trying to learn about it for sure. So yeah, I introduced you now, right, Cha? So we're here with Cha McCoy. She founded Cha Squared, your hospitality consulting company. Focuses on education, tourism, a multitude of things, right? You were named one of top 40 under 40 tastemakers by Wine Enthusiast and one of Cherry Bomb's 100 Ones to Watch. And you just took over there as beverage director as well. You're certified som, general powerhouse in the wine industry. Also a trained engineer and incredible public speaker. So yeah, thank you so much for being here to have this discussion with us today. I know it's like, these times are crazy. The election is definitely taking an emotional toll on everyone right now. So really appreciate you sharing, your time and energy with us for sure.
Thank you for having me. And this is the power of scheduling, because to be honest, a lot of people are like, hey, let's talk tomorrow. I'm like, do you want me to say no 50 times? Like, let's push it all the way out where there's a clear view, where I know I can be seated and give you full focus. So thank you for being patient. And so that we can have this session today. So I'm excited to meet you both and sharing and learning from you as well.
I love that. No, seriously, we're very excited to talk to you. Yeah. So how did you first get involved in wine? And kind of what was the tipping point when you realized your career had shifted into the wine industry?
Well, first I got into wine. My first job in wine is a wine shop. So I love talking to fellow cavists like yourself who are just, bottle shopping it and, doing the hard work that gets, like, let's say, little reward. But I would say, and that was in 2010 though, is when I moved to Italy. And during my time living there, I did not go there for wine. So normally when people hear that, they think, oh, wow, she traveled out to Italy and fell in love with wine and learned then. No, it was just, the lack of understanding about wine and living in Europe. I guess being American and not knowing about wine was very obvious. Like, you couldn't fake it, So that's what inspired me to kind of understand what was in the glass. Everyone kind of spoke, as I like to say, wine fluent in a way where they were able to order with confidence. And that's something that I lacked. And then those who didn't, let's just say, they made me feel like I was the only one who didn't know. And so that's when the curiosity first started for me. And then on my return back into the country in 2012 is when I started working at a wine shop, and the rest is history, as they say. And so that was my first wine job when I returned.
I love that. Love that. So wonderful. When was your first experience as a wine consultant, and how did that kind of propel your career?
Well, a lot of what I do, I would say, to be honest, last year was when I stopped doing no work related to engineering. So being a full-time consulting and just kind of jumping all the way in, it is very new for me, because everything I was doing was just kind of, wine consultant is just let's say, a more adult way of saying wine hustler. I just did whatever anybody was willing to pay me for, to do the things I love to do in wine. So someone's like, oh, Chad, I'm about to go to Spain and my friends want to go to Spain and we love wine. I'm like, perfect. Let me put together your whole wine itinerary for you and book all the wineries they should go to. Places like Spain is a lot of wineries, right? So it's like, well, where do I go? Will I just go anywhere? So booking people's full trips for them. So, all right, there go one customer. Someone, oh, we want to have a wine tasting at our event. Okay, I'm ready. Tell me what day, pay me in advance. Let's let me coordinate the wines. More high profile ones. I do have friends that are chefs, which is perfect. And so when one of my friends, actually Chef Eris, she was asked to host a dinner at James Beard House for Thanksgiving in 2017. I want to say that's right, 2017. She was like, "Oh, child, I want you to do the whole wine pairing for my Thanksgiving meal at James Beard." I was like, "Are you serious?" Like, like, I was like, so I was like, this is pretty serious. And so, even then, not too many people knew my name, but of course I had a lot of food friends. And so they kind of just like hired me to do one-off jobs like this. And so my consulting work today is more where I'm like, okay, let me book out and have a plan, and who can I do tastings for, who can I do these different things I just mentioned with. But back then it was sporadic. It was intermittent as my work kind of was still in engineering. So I would say I had one foot, in the wine consulting world, just using the little network that I had. And that propelled to what I'm able to establish today, which is now a full-on consultant job. So a lot of consulting in every industry, just to be clear, for those who are listening, that, it's like, you didn't really tell us what you do. And so that's why, like, on my website, I make it very clear, I do wine education, I do wine tourism, I do wine food experiences and events, so people can know, okay, I'm a consultant who do these multiple things. And then I do wine marketing as it relates to social media content creation, and what we do for the larger magazine at Cherry Bombe. So in that case, there's a lot more levels to it, but at least I can name like 5 things that I do versus just saying, yeah, I'm a wine consultant. And so that's, I think, just to make that a little clearer for people who may not know me, who are listening, that you may find somebody else who do wine consulting, they do exporting and importing and still have the same title, but they do it in a different way. So just understand, whenever you hear that, don't be afraid to ask people, like, but what is it you actually do, So.
That's amazing. How did you first get involved with Cherry Bombe, and kind of like what specifically like do you kind of do as their beverage director? Because I know they focus on more than obviously just like beverage stuff.
Yes. For those of your listeners who don't know, and usually people in the beverage world do not know because it's a new platform for Cherry Bombe. Cherry Bombe is a female-led, operated, and focused media. Magazine is the magazine publication is, it's kind of, everyone knows more of that than anything, really food media, and women, celebrating and supporting women in food. So the magazine started 7 years ago. From then, it has now turned into this beautiful monster of being very event focused, pre-COVID. We do virtual things now. And now we also have a Cherry Bombe Squad official membership. But within the programming, we do everything from our annual Jubilee, which is a large food conference, one-day event held every year. And now that beverage is an official part of its programming, instead of kind of like throwing in beverages whenever, because it makes sense because they're talking about food, now it's like an official, place so we can give love to the women in the beverage industry. And that's everything from spirits, wine, to even non-alcoholic beverages. So I cover everything from, I like saying, coffee to kava.
That's awesome. And how did you get started, like, with doing like the cha list and like the communion tastings and stuff? Was that something you kind of always were doing, or was that something you kind of?
So 3 years ago is when I actually started my first communion. But in 2016, it was kind of like I had to have that aha moment. You both look maybe too young to have that yet, but I reached a point in the industry that I was in where it was kind of like, is this, do I want my boss's job? And hopefully everyone asks themselves that, whether that means you leave the industry or change, companies is up to you. But, you just kind of like do a self-reflection on, like, do I really want to do the next level up or the next level up? And none of it was of interest to me. I do still love interiors and designing spaces and building out spaces. In this case, you know, one day maybe I'll be brought on more hospitality projects to do that, or on my own when I open my own brick and mortar, to kind of fulfill that, you know, what I've been doing and trained to do I've been doing for 13 years, believe it or not. So it was that aha moment in 2016 where it's kind of like I wanted that communal table experience that some restaurants have incorporated as part of their hospitality experience. But I did realize that there was value to these more intimate food and wine experience, or food and beverages experiences that weren't so fancy, if you want to say, that wasn't so fine dining, but still gave you all the things you love about fine dining. So the multi-layered courses, the wine, the tasting menu that would go along with it, in that case too. So there was something I thought was super unique about that most of the people, I'm from New York, specifically Harlem, where people don't even know it's happening right in New York City because it's not really inviting to us, you know, someone that's an original New Yorker, that's from uptown, that's as a person of color, like they're not really reaching out to say, hey, come down here, or let's have those type of experiences up where I live. And so I find, you know, because, you know, they always say, start where you are. You know, I said, I'm a big Gary Vee fan. And so, you know, in that case, you look at it like, okay, I don't have the money to open a restaurant or a wine bar. So let me do these pop-up series where I can just kind of get people in the room. And of course, at first it started with people I knew and friends and family, etc. Some of them still come out, like regardless, you know, even they've been to so many and they still come out, which I appreciate too. Is one thing where you're like thinking it's like a support, like, oh, thank you, Auntie, for coming all the time. But you realize that she truly loves the experience. And so that's important too to notice as well. So where you're like, oh, well, if you want to come to this one, it's going to sell out. I only got 2 tickets left, you know? So it's like, I'm not trying to put the pressure on you, but I'm not putting no special seat aside for you. I'm selling the tickets, you know? So yeah, so that happens. I used to joke about my mom when I get them in New York, how she would come and bring her friends and then I won't have seats for anyone else. And I'm like, you have to stop bringing your people. I want new people to come, you know? So it's always good because I mean, my mom even pays. No one comes for free. And so in this case, I just really wanted that experience that translated to what I experienced, what I physically experienced in Italy to happen in this setting where in Italy, you weren't considered fancy or rich because you drank wine or you knew how to pronounce, I don't know, Vermentino, or in the case here in New York, where people may struggle when they see Gewürztraminer on the menu. You know, like to be honest, it may be the grape that everybody will fall in love with, but they're so intimidated about all the letters and saying it correctly. They go, oh, let me just go for Chardonnay, because it's like they recognize it and it's easy for them to kind of just say, and they don't want to feel bad. So in this case, I realized it was a multi-layer part, you know, to this. People wanted to feel invited and included. Then once they got there, they didn't want to feel intimidated if they didn't know anything about wine. They enjoyed it, but they don't know what the hell tannins are, but everybody keep telling them about the tannins of the wine. So they felt safe in a place to actually like ask those questions to me. And I really always try to make it feel like they're just like in my living room, like an extension from, you know, the one day me having at wine bars, you know, kind of feeling, and just kind of feeling very relaxed. So I never make it feel like, oh, no, let's take out the notepads and do a formal tasting. It's never about that. It's always about the food pairings too. I originally didn't start with a chef, but I always had a chef in mind, like bringing on chefs. And then eventually people were like, all right, girlfriend, I'm drinking all this wine and now I'm hungry. So then I was like, okay, let me continue having like a chef involved and rotating chefs. But the food of, I'm sure just like in North Carolina and other places of the world, there's areas that are not celebrated, food that's not celebrated as being like high-end food, worthy enough of being paired with certain wines. And so in that case, you know, it was really about how to actually feature some of the foods that we all love. And I don't care if it's fried chicken, I don't care if it's oysters, I don't care if it's, I did a Senegalese food pairing, so traditional dishes from Senegal. So, in this case is a way to have a much larger conversation than just like wine by itself, but also what food deserves a proper wine tasting. Because you wouldn't think, oh, why are we thinking so hard? This is just Mexican food. But why not? I mean, at the end of the day, if you can feel the same way about what wine goes well with Italian food and how that experience or French food is so high end, I don't know why you wouldn't do the same thing about a Mexican cuisine or a West African cuisine. So it was a way to elevate also food that's kind of left out of the conversation when we're talking about pairings. So
Absolutely. No, that's beautiful and very important. I love food, but